finally I finished this book and I hated it. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, sometimes, well, most of the time lately, I've talked about books or anything I want really. But today I'm talking about a book that I just finished reading a few days ago and my God, it was horrendous. The book follows Zoe, which is a 16-year-old teen that has been marked because in her universe, vampires exist and they're out in the open, and you have these trackers. Basically, it's like a virus that you can have, like sort of a gene, and they have these trackers that go to random schools and literally mark kids. They point at them and they mark them, and they sort of get like a tattoo on their forehead, and they start going through a change that eventually makes them become a vampire. Vampires are not your typical vampires that, of course, they cannot go out in the sun because it weakens them, but they kind of evolve into becoming vampires. They don't have fangs, they're not scary, they don't have supernatural speed or anything like that, as far as I'm aware. But I only made it through the first book, and trust me, it was a hard journey. It was such a difficult journey because the main character, she is annoying. Not only does she complain about everybody else being judgmental, but she's also the biggest judge of all. If you haven't guessed that already, this review is going to be filled with spoilers, so beware. Go read the book if you are planning to or interested in. But this book took me a long time to read. Let me actually check. As you can see here, I read it from February to October. So it took me about 8 months to read. And yes, I have read it 2 times. I didn't remember why I did not finish reading it in 2017, but I do now. It's because the main character is one of the worst MCs I've read about recently. She is a good girl, and she wants everybody to know she is a good girl. She wants you, most of all, to know that she is a good girl. And listen, more power to her, whatever floats your boat. But if you complain about people being controlling and then you go out and try to be like, she complains so much that her initially in the book she is living with her mother and her stepfather, who are part of a cult, sort of. They're part of a religion called the People of the Faith, and she is part Cherokee, which is one of the things that I really loved about this book. She's a Native American, or she has at least some ancestry tied to Native American. I think her grandmother is Native, so her mother is has Native blood. She has Native blood, and that makes her sort of special because we don't know yet. This book is kind of short, which is the saving grace or one of the book, because I was dying to finish it. Like, I know I said that about Separation, but for this book, oh my god. Also, the plot is a little bit interesting as well, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So we established that they get marked by some random vampires called Tracker, which can literally sense when kids are going to go through the change. So they scout them out, they mark them, and that tells them that they have to go to a boarding school to study to become a vampire. One of the funniest things about it is that most of the celebrities are considered vampires in this universe. Like Shakespeare, I don't remember if Leonardo DiCaprio. There were some others that I actually cannot remember. And of course, being marked means that you're different. As soon as she's marked, everybody starts treating her like she has COVID or something similar. Like, she has the cooties, nobody wants to touch her, nobody wants to talk to her, everybody's ostracizing her, and she has to go to this school or else she's gonna literally die. Like, she's going through some changes. She feels weak, she feels, I think, nauseous and stuff like that. And so she tells her mother, which of course she doesn't have to tell her because they can see it on her forehead. And her stepfather doesn't want her to go. Her mother doesn't want her to go because she does everything that her stepfather tells her to do. But she escapes. She goes to visit her grandmother, who actually convinces her and brings her to the school. But while she was looking for her grandmother in her lavender yard, which she does have a lavender jar, which is one of the things that I actually find sort of cool. On her grandmother's lavender yard, she passes out, and when she wakes, and she has sort of a vision with the goddess, because the vampires worship a goddess that I completely forgot the name. Oh, Nyx. They worship the vampire Nyx. They worship the goddess Nyx, which in Greek mythology or like Roman mythology, oh my god, I cannot even remember. But she's the goddess of the night, and she has a vision where the goddess is telling her that she's special and blah blah blah. And when she wakes up, she has her mark color, which is not something that happens to fledglings, which is what she is. It's something that happens as you go through the change and actually become a full vampire. So far, she's just transitioning to become a vampire. She's not a full vampire yet. So everybody starts treating her like she's the special one and the chosen one because she kind of is. Her mark is colored, which is not something that typically happens to fledglings. It's something that sort of it happens as you evolve and become a full vampire. When you become a full vampire is when your mark gets colored in. And she meets with the high priestess, which in this case is Nefret, and she's actually her mentor as well, because you sort of have these people that are kind of in tune with you as you go through the change. They're sort of your, like I said, their mentor. They're sort of looking out for you. They help you if you have any doubts, if you are going you experiencing some things. Some of them have abilities or like affinities. That's what they're called. They have affinities, which basically are like their talents. One of them is called Aphrodite, another vampire or fledgling is called Aphrodite, and she has this cult or this club, which is the Daughters of the Night, Dark Daughters, or the Daughters of Darkness. I don't even remember that well because at some points I was like blacking out because the dialogue, oh my god, is super extremely cringe. This is a 2000s book, and it's given literally Wattpad fanfic. In a way, I feel they read Vampire Academy and they made a fan fiction about it, but through the lens of a good girl who is becoming a vampire. Because, like I said, Zoe is a good girl and she wants you to know she's a good girl. She doesn't like any substances, being alcohol, drugs, or even sex. Like, my girl is a straight edge. She does not like that at all. And to the point, she doesn't like anybody else that does it either. Like, girl, if it's not affecting your life, why do you care? But I'm getting ahead of the story again. So she meets this mentor. So she's the chosen one. She meets her roommate, which is kind of sweet. I actually kind of like her. Stevie Ray. She's sort of sweet in the country sense, and they become really good friends. Stevie Ray introduces her to her rest of the friends, which one of them is a gay boy, and the way my god, I cannot get over the way they speak because it's basically most of the book is them talking to each other. And it's so funny because in the acknowledgments page, okay, I'm getting ahead of myself, but this book was written by a mother and daughter duo, and her mother actually says thank you to her daughter for teaching her how to talk like a teenager, which I don't know how old her daughter is, but I don't remember us talking that way when we were teenagers. And there's actually another Fable Mutual that keeps telling me this is a 2000 books. And like, I'm a 90s kid. Like, I am. Like, we did not talk like that. We talked like that in middle school, but no, we didn't talk like that. As far as I remember, maybe my memory is faulting me, whatever. It's been a long time since I've been a teenager. And there's these two other characters that keep calling each other twins. And every time I read them say twins, I was rolling my eyes. But it's okay. It's okay. Just every time they said it, like every other sentence, they kept calling each other twin. And it was just super annoying, extremely annoying. But moving on from that, she tries to get used to the school. Actually, I think we only have her like 3 days being at the school. She met this other girl who, like I said, Aphrodite. She has a club, which are sort of the popular clique, and they have, oh, also, this is a very matriarchal society. So the women are the ones with power, and the guys are just sort of cans, which is cute. It was ahead of its time, but 2007 standards, I guess. She has this club where they do sort of ceremonies certain days. It's sort of like a little cult, but they have the blessings of all the teachers and their mentors, and they do these rituals where they drink fledgling blood mixed with wine from a cup in a circle, and they do these weird dances. And Zoe actually has an affinity for all the elements, which is fire, earth, water, and air, and also spirit. That is one of the elements as well, which is yourself, which is very unheard of. She's been the only one in centuries who has had an affinity for all of the five elements. And she kind of notices while they're doing a ritual per school with all of the kids, because they also, like I said, they worship this goddess named Nyx. And the school does this ritual where the high priestess, which in this case is Neferet, her mentor, Zoe's mentor, where they do a circle and she dances around, and all the other ones hold like a candle in four different places and whatever. That's really not important. Only to explain that the cult does something similar as well, the little club. And the leader is Aphrodite, which is the villain of the story in a way. Although I think the villain is kind of Zoe. Or maybe Nefret. I don't know. I'm put a pin on that one. Because I think if you read this book, let me know. If you have read the entire series, let me know who the actual villain is. Because I don't think it's Aphrodite. I think she's getting a redemption arc eventually. So, because she is the chosen one, she gets invited to this club by both Neferet the mentor and Aphrodite, which is the leader of the club, because she has her mark colored, and they have like years. I don't. Zoe is a third year. They go up to sixth or seventh, I think. I don't remember, to be honest. But the school was kind of interesting. That's one of the things that I actually like about the book. The school was very interesting. They have weird classes which are sort of cool. They have equestrian classes, they have Spanish classes, they have sociology classes. It's sort of like a college mixed with a boarding school and high school all together, all combined, which is kind of interesting. And I wish I would have seen more of that, but the only thing we got are just things that are related to the plot in itself, or actually show how cool the main character is. So, like I said, she's invited to this club. She goes to one of the rituals where she finds out that they're actually drinking fledgling blood, but she doesn't find out until after. And she really likes this wine because she's suffering from blood loss, which is not something that typically happens to fledglings or newly marked vampires. It happens a few years after as you go into this change. This change takes years. You go through multiple years before you turn into an actual vampire. And they kind of make fun of her for that because she liked the blood so much and she doesn't want all her friends to know that she actually likes blood. Although like you guys are vampires, why? Is that a big deal? So she runs away from the ritual afterwards and she meets a cat that actually likes her. And while she's trying to save the cat, she encounters her ex and her ex best friend that kind of turned on her when she got marked. And they tell her that they're going to help her escape, which, like, this girl needs to be here, okay? She is turning into a vampire. If she's not here, she will die. Which, that's one of the things that happens. Your body can reject the change. That's what is called the change. So your body can actually reject it, sort of like a transplant. And if you reject it, you die. But funny and interesting thing about it is one of the girls that she actually met during her first day died and she saw her ghost moving at really fast speed and it gave her the scent of dead, of wrongness, which I think is really interesting. And my theory is, oh, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself, but actually, should I say it? My theory is that Neferet actually has something to do with those vampires that reject the change because she actually gives them something. No, yes, I'm getting ahead of myself. So she saws her, but she cannot really think about that too much because, like I said, her ex and her ex best friend actually show up trying to bust her out of the school. And that's when she realizes she does not like that dude at all, and she doesn't like her friend at all either. And she kind of slut shames her a little bit in her head. So she almost drinks, or actually, she does drink her ex's blood. She fights a little bit with her best friend, so her best friend decides she wants to leave, and then she kind of drinks a little bit of her ex's blood, which causes him to imprint. Not like the Bella, also kind of like the Bella from Twilight scene. You imprinted on my daughter? Yes, we all know that classic. That scene is iconic. I will fight to the death with anyone who says that scene is trash. It is not. That's a masterpiece right there. And so her friend, or her ex best friend, manages to break her out of her spell because she was suffering from blood loss again. Her best friend and her ex leave because she forces them to. And then she meets this other guy, which she saw when she arrived the first day, that was getting a blowjob from Aphrodite, the leader of the club and the villain of this book. And he tells her that basically there's nothing happening with Aphrodite anymore. They used to date, but he's not into her anymore, so nothing is going on, despite what she saw. And so he walks her back to her dorm. The next day, I don't remember exactly what happened, but there's this other dude who is a redhead who is terrible. And none of the teachers like him. He used to room with the gay guy until he complained and got a little bit homophobic. A little bit, no, actually. Very, very much homophobic. And so he dies as well. And that we do witness on the book. Neferet comes and gives him some sort of drink that actually is his pain. And then they take him away because he was coughing up blood and crying blood, and there was blood pouring out of all of his orifices. And I think Neferet is actually turning them into real vampires because Zoe got a little bit of a sense that this was wrong, and she actually sees him afterwards as well. She tells Stevie Ray that she saw the ghost of Elizabeth, which is the girl that died, and I don't remember if she managed to tell her that she actually saw the ghost of the redhead kid, but she did as well. But we don't find out what any of that has to do because Zoe needs to kick out Aphrodite's butt and take her spot as the leader of the club. Aphrodite has an affinity for visions. She gets visions of things that are gonna happen, like premonitions, and she doesn't like to tell anyone about them unless most of the time, unless they actually see that she's having a vision, so she has to She's basically forced. And so Zoe does not like that. She's not into that because that's being a bad girl. So she decides that she's gonna take Aphrodite's place as the leader of the club, and she decides to go another time. And this ritual is actually taking place outside of the school in a gazebo on the neighborhood that is next to the school. And they summon spirits, which Aphrodite did absolutely wrong, which we find out she needed to use lavender, which we find out a few pages prior because Zoe actually does a ritual with all of her friends to find out if she does actually have an affinity for all of the five elements, and turns out she does. And she asks for Nyx's guidance to know what she has to do. So she goes to the ritual after fighting with her friends that wanted to help her, and she was not able to tell them what they did. But plot twist, of course, they're there because her friend decided to volunteer as the people donating her blood, or being a refrigerator, as they call it. But she volunteers to be the blood donor for that ritual, and they summon the spirits, and turns out they're evil spirits, so they want to kill or like possess them. And then her ex, of course, shows up and because he's imprinted on Zoe, and he wants to get back together with her. And Zoe's like, no, leave. And then one of the spirits actually possesses Aphrodite, and it's like causing this dude, which is Heat, called Heat, causing this dude to actually enter the circle so they can possess him. And Zoe manages to save him, manages to save everybody else with her powers. And then, for some reason, Neferet was there, so Neferet decides to make Zoe the leader of the club. And that is it. That's all for this book, basically, but not basically. So, pretty evident why I hated her. The plot was interesting. The system sounded interesting. The school sounded interesting. The main character was not at all. And I wish I had not read it, but if I started reading it, I had to finish it because I was not gonna give it a DNF and not understand why I did not give this book a try and if it was really worth it or not. And turns out it wasn't. I think I'm gonna read the Vampire Academy instead. But yeah, that is it.